All right. Okay. So welcome everyone to Wellington MuleSoft Meetup Group. I'm Joy Sabal, working as integration technical lead for Datacom New Zealand. So thank you so much for joining in. I'm really excited for this topic. And yeah, good morning, good afternoon, good evening from whichever part of the world you are. And yeah, so reminders, this session will be recorded. And then afterwards, we're going to have quizzes, and winners will get free class vouchers or certification vouchers. And then I think after an hour, after 24 hours, you're gonna receive a post-event survey email. And please feel free to share any feedback, appreciations that you have to improve ourselves. If you have any requests for future topics, just give a shout. And of course, we're gonna have a group picture at the end of this session. Organizer, so Pedro, Yako, and Arkan unfortunately can't join us tonight. So myself and Jackie would be your co-host, and Jackie will be your speaker for today. All right. So before anything else, I really want to thank Jitendra or Jackie for, you know, giving or saying yes for this topic. It's really such an honor and privilege to have you as the speaker in Wellington Meetup Group. And Jackie is one of my constant mentors, and if not without him, I'm not actually here because he's the one who encouraged me to be, to become more involved in the community. And apart from that, he's he has 130 plus articles in the zone and nearly 300 videos, and recently got what's that award again, Jack? In the zone, contributor of the year.
Yeah, contributor of the year. Yeah.
Yes. So yeah, so he's my fellow MuleSoft ambassador as well, and the Surat MuleSoft Meetup leader, which is very dear to me because that's where I started, speaking meetups. So I'm really, really excited and honored to introduce you, Jack.
Thanks,
today.
Larry.
So yeah, over to you.
Yeah. So I will share my screen.
Yep, sure. Hey, Ravi. Good to see you
here. Yeah. Just let me know once you can see my screen.
Yep, I could.
Yeah. Just a minute. Yeah. Let me. My screen, right? Yeah. So I'll quickly start with the session. Okay. Yeah, hi everyone. So I think Mary has already gave my introduction. So basically, I am working as a senior solution architect at Capgemini, and recently I have been recognized as a MuleSoft ambassador, and I am the Surat MuleSoft meetup leader. And overall, I have 13 plus years of experience in the integration and the API technology, and I am a certified MuleSoft integration architect and the platform architect. So, agendas for today's meetup, we will discuss about API security, various threats and vulnerabilities. Then we will talk about OAuth and the JWT. So basically, in OAuth, we will go through a various grant type, which include authorization code, client credential, and the implicit code. Then we will talk about OpenID Connect, identity management, and the client management. Also, we will talk about a SAML-based identity management. We will discuss about some API policy, and this session completely will be on the live demonstration. So we will see how we can enable the SAML in AnyPoint platform, how we can enable the dynamic client registration in this AnyPoint platform, how we can like integrate OpenID Connect for identity management with an endpoint platform. Okay. So what is API security basically? What is the need of API security? Why we need a API security? Okay. So basically, like as you know, like in this modern world, like we have a n number of threats, we have a n number of security attacks, we have a n number of security vulnerabilities. So to avoid all these kind of threats, we require a API security at a various layer in our API. So generally, like when we deploy our API, right, the API must be secure at a various level. Basically, when it comes to, we have to secure the API at a network layer. Then we have to secure the API at a transport layer. Then we have to secure the API at an application layer. So if you see, like you will heard every day, like this is the new threads, this is the new API threads came into the, like into this market, like those kind of things. So every day the new threads are coming into the this in the security basically. So MuleSoft provide a various option, okay, which can be minimize the risk. So we have a various attack like distributed denial of service, and any security vulnerabilities. So MuleSoft provide a various option to avoid such kind of security attacks basically. Also, also you can enable the HTTPS, or like you can secure the transport layer by enabling one-way SSL or two-way SSL. So MuleSoft also provide various security policies like GWT validation policies. We have a basic authentication, we have a AOT policy, we have OpenID enforcement policies. Though there are various kind of security policies available through which you can secure your APIs. Okay. So apart from that, just it's not about securing the API. Also, we need to secure the data. Like we have to secure the sensitive data. So for that, MuleSoft provide a various algorithms like JC algorithm, PGP encryption, decryption, and like XML encryption and decryption mechanism through which you can also encrypt your data when the data is transmitting over the internet basically. So API means like it exchanges the data over the internet, over the public internet, right? So in that case, you have to ensure that your API is secure at all the level. So like at the edge level, when I talk about the edge level, your API must be secure at a load balancer basically. Then your API must be must use the strong authentication or authorization mechanism. And the third, like API must be end-to-end HTTPS, it must be enabled with one-way SSL or mutual authentication two-way SSL basically. Okay. Then I will talk about a different type of attacks. I know like a lot of people knows about these attacks. So basically, a denial of service, a distributed denial of service, like parameter tampering, like a cross-site scripting, in like a SQL injection, PHP injection, sensitive data exposure. So I will talk about denial of service and distributed denial of service. So these are the two one of the main security threats. So generally API face basically. So what is a denial of service? So denial of service is nothing like some program or some script which will continuously send the request to your APIs basically. Continuously send the request, like thousands of requests at a time to your API. In that case, what will happen? That thousand requests will consume all your resources like memory, your CPU, everything. So in that case, what will happen? Your Mule runtime will get crashed basically, right? So Mule runtime will get failed. Mule runtime will get crashed because the Mule runtime will not have any memory or any to accept more requests, and it will get crashed. And what does distributed denial of service means? The difference between denial of service and the distributed denial service is in distributed denial service there are multiple programs which will send which will keep on sending a request to the servers to your Mule runtime. And in denial of service, there's only one source, or we can call it as a one program or any one bot program which keep on sending the request to your server. So basically it flooding your server basically. It keep on sending the request to your server, and your server get crashed and it will shut down. So to avoid such kind of situation, MuleSoft provide the policies like rate limiting, you have a quota limiting, then you have IP whitelisting, you have IP blacklisting, you have a XML threat protection policy, we have a JSON threat protection policy. So those kind of policies are available which can stop such kind of attacks on your APIs basically. So what are the ways to achieve API security? So I talk about we have a digital signature. So we can make use of digital signature to to secure your data basically. So digital signature is used to secure your data, right? Then we have cryptography algo like a mechanism like PGP. PGP means a pretty good privacy. Then we have a JC Java cryptography extension. We have a XML. Also, like I recommended generally we always have to use OAuth basically to secure our APIs. Also, you can use a token based authentication, or you can use any any other kind of authentication available with your API. So generally, like we generally use JWT OAuth. We support various kind of grant type. We will discuss about those grant type: authorization code, client credential, and the implicit code. Then API manager provide a various security policies like rate limiting, XML threat protection, JWT validation policy. Also, MuleSoft provide one option like anypoint security. So, but the problem with anypoint security that can be used with runtime fabric only, and it comes and it can be applied at an edge location at the on the top of load balancer. So your load balancer is edge basically where you can apply the endpoint security. So it come up with various things like IP whitelisting, avoid denial of service attacks, like web application firewall. Then it also come up with other things like IP like whitelisting, quote limiting, rate limiting. Those kind of things is also available in the endpoint security. There are few security policies: JWT validation policy, basic authentication, XML JSON threat protection policy, IP whitelisting, blacklisting, tokenization, and de-tokenization. So tokenization means like let's consider if you are getting some request, so what you if you apply the tokenization policy to your request, what will happen? You can encrypt the sensitive data, like in your request, if social security number is coming, right? And you want to encrypt those data before it goes to the actual server, so you can use the tokenization policy. And after, like whenever you get the response back, you can decrypt using the de-tokenization policy. So those kind of policies is already available with the Anypoint platform. Any till now? Any question?
You're good, Jack. Carry on.
Let me check. Okay. Okay. Let me go there. So generally we talk about there are two things: identity management and the client management. So when we have to use the identity management and when we have to use the client management. So basically client management is used for machine to machine communication. So basically when you want to secure your API, when you want to enable OAuth authentication on the top of your API, right? In that case, we go with client management. So when we go with identity management, so identity management means like you so basically if somebody want to log into the Anypoint platform, right? So it's like some organization users want to log into the Anypoint platform. So what you can do, you can integrate your Anypoint platform with Azure AD directory or your Okta users. So where your organization user exists, you can integrate it. So anybody from your organization can easily point platform using identity provider. So basically we have various OAuth or identity or client management provider: Okta, Ping, OpenEM, Keycloak, AWS Cognito, Azure IDP, OAuth 0, Google, Box, GitHub, and there are various grant types supported: authorization code, client credential, refresh token, password, and implicit code. So we will talk about authorization code, client credential, and the implicit code in this particular session, and we will see the demonstration on that. Okay, so these are some OAuth provider. There are many other OAuth provider, but these are the most widely used OAuth provider. Okta is one of the widely used OAuth provider basically. So what is OpenID? What is OpenID Connect? Identity management basically. So basically, as we know, like we have a OAuth protocol which is already available. So on the top of OAuth protocol, okay, so they have put the identity management, right? So that is known as the OpenID Connect. So basically, OpenID Connect extend the OAuth 2.0 basically. And basically, OAuth 2.0 protocol provide API security via scope access token, and OpenID Connect provide user authentication and the single sign-on facility. So we have a OAuth. So OAuth is basically used for the machine to machine communication. But OpenID Connect extend that OAuth protocol to to authenticate the user, okay, and to provide a single sign kind of functionality, right? We have a SAML also, but they also OpenID also come up with the capability where you can secure your API using client management, and also you can enable identity management on the top of your anypoint platform, so user can use any third party Okta or Azure AD directory or Okta user to log in into the anypoint platform. We will see that example. So there is a two-way. One, you can use the OpenID Connect, and one we can use the SAML 2.0. SAML is nothing, a security assertion markup language. So basically, this is also a protocol which is used for the identity management. So this is mostly used for the government websites. If you in some of the European countries, you log in into one site, and if you are trying to open other government site, you get automatically log in into that other sites, right? So this is the single sign of kind of capability. We will see that. So what we will do, see two demonstration. One is on OpenID Connect and one is on SAML 2.0. So this both are used for identity management. The SAML 2 for identity management. ID Connect can be used for identity management as well as client management. The demonstration of that. So what we will do? So we will configure identity pro platform, and we will use Okta username and the password to log in into the endpoint platform. Okay, so that is the demo we will see. So now also we will see a dynamic client registration basically. So dynamic client registration is nothing, it's kind of client management. So basically what happens, so dynamic client registration allow to register third party application dynamically. So generally what happens, so basically for OAuth you require a client ID and the client secret basically, right? So basically you can go, what you can expose your API, you can go to developer portal, from developer access. So what will happen once you say request access? So you fill the form, it will generate a client ID and the client secret. As well as into the identity provider or OAuth provider like Okta. I will show that example also. And this is also based on the OpenID Connect basically. I talk about the OpenID Connect, right? So that is also based on the OpenID Connect. Okay. So what happened? I will tell you. So client. So basically what happened? The client want to access the resources into the cloud. So what will happen? The client will want to generate the token first. The client app request and access token. So client will send the request to Okta. Okay. And Okta will, like with client ID and the client secret, then Okta will return that token. Then the client app, basically what client app will do, client app will send that token into authorization header, okay, to the API manager. Then API manager will validate that token into the Okta. If token is successfully validated, then it can access the mule worker basically. Okay, so that is we will see that in deep, with the example, okay, in next slide. Any question on OpenID Connect? And see, OpenID Connect can do identity management as well as a client management basically, right? Whereas SAML only do the identity management. So when I talk about identity management, so basically you can log in into any point platform using the OAuth provided like Okta or like any or zero whatever like. Okay, and the client management is basically used to secure your API. It's a machine-to-machine communication. Any question?
We got one question here from Jay. So he's asking, why can't we use multiple external identity provider?
1 minute. Why can't we use the identity from provider from? We can use we can use the multiple identity provider basically. You can so generally I will tell you initially initially what is happening so initially you can use only one identity provider, but now there is an option you can use the multiple identity provider for client management basically. Okay, for multiple identity provider for client management, not for identity management generally, because let see what happens for any organization. All user will be exist in their one system, maybe in Azure AD directory, maybe in Okta, right? So that is the reason you can integrate with only one identity provider. You cannot have the user in the multiple entity, like multiple into the multiple providers basically, like few users in AWS, few users in Azure, few users in Okta. You cannot be have like that, right? So in that case, you can integrate only one identity provider basically. But for client management, you can integrate multiple providers basically.
Multiple client provider, but not multiple identity provider.
Yeah, generally that is initially when we use like in any point platform, we don't have an option where we can use the multiple identity provider for client management also. But recently the things has been changed. Basically, you can assign like so different identity provider for the different environment. For client management, you can use it basically. Okay, what is the, let's say there is a DDoS attack and it
Oh,
getting failed to connect to API due to API manager policy, but why API manager doesn't goes down? Yeah, Suja, like API manager basically like it see, because API policy you are applying at a age level, right? So you are applying the policy at a age level basically. So the request is itself, the request will not get into the server. It is rejected outside only basically. And like and we don't have a control. As I mentioned, Suja, like request comes and it will quickly reject the request at the age location only, right? The request will not enter in.
right. So there's still you missed one question, Jack. Could you please explain again the difference between client
Client,
management
yeah.
and identity management?
Yeah, but I will definitely. So client management is basically used to secure your API. So basically, if you want to enable the authentication on the top of your API, right, you go with the client management. Identity management basically is used to basically when you want to log in into any point platform, right? So using Okta user or using Azure user. So you use identity management. So basically, identity management is used to log in into any point platform using any OAuth provider or using any identity provider. Okay, but for client management is used to secure your API basically for machine to machine communication. Okay.
So
Yeah.
one more question, Jack.
Dixit, I will show that, like, you know, so that will come. That is using the dynamic client registration. There's a demo on that, Dixit.
All right. So one question from Suresh. What is the latency trade-off if API manager does validate the token to Okta server?
See, definitely, like, you know, if you are adding some policies, there will be at least zero point 0.3 millisecond or 2 milliseconds kind of latency, Suresh. There will be definitely latency, basically, okay? If you are adding any policy, if you are adding multiple policy, like for one API, if you are adding 2, 3 policy, so there will be like, let's consider 2 milliseconds. So for 3 policies, there will be 6 milliseconds of, you know, just this is example. We don't know the exact figure, like what will be the latency for each and every policy, but definitely like if you are adding more and more policy, the number of the latency will get increased to this, right? So because it has to validate, because it will check for everything, like whatever. Let's consider if you're applying the rate limiting policy, it will go and check everything, like, you know, this is the rate limit. So it has to validate the request, and once it validates, then it goes to the server. So let's consider if you're applying 10 policies, so definitely it will increase the latency by at least like 15 or 20 milliseconds. So it has to validate each and every policies, right, Suresh? So I think there is some figure available. So like, does it keep the no token, like see, token API manager doesn't keep the token, right? You will come to know, Suresh. I will show the demo. What happened? Token will be has to be stored by client. The client will send a token in the authorization header. Okay, and but then that when the request come to the API manager, there is a JWT validation policy, right? The JWT validation policy use some algorithm. So there is some private key, and it use RSA 256 or RSA 512 algorithm, and it validates the token. It doesn't store the token anywhere. So it will not store token. It's a client has to send the token. It will validate the token using the private key and the public key, and it will forward the request basically. So it uses some algorithm to the backend, but it doesn't store anything. It doesn't store any token basically in the memory. Suresh, you will come to know. I will show you that in demonstration. Okay. Yeah. Let me go to next slide. So now question comes, what is then why what is the difference between SAML and the OpenID Connect? See, basically the intention of both the SAML and OpenID Connect is the same. Basically, it has to authenticate the user and the provide identity data for the access control and as a communication method for the user identity. So basically the intention is same. Like both protocol will allow to log in into your anypoint platform or to any third party application. That is the intention. But the main difference is that the SAML is like it's came in 2005 and it is bit mature also. Okay, and it support the wide range of identity functionality. You will come to know what I mean to wide range of identity functionality. I will show you during demonstration. And apart from that, the SAML use the XML for the communication, whereas the OpenID use the JWT, a JSON format, a JWT token for the communication, and it also use the HTTPS. Only difference is that SAML is more mature. It support wide range of operation as compared to OpenID Connect, and OpenID Connect is bit new. It's still getting mature, and it like there are few functionality which is provided by SAML. It doesn't provided by OpenID Connect. I will tell you. I will show with example what does that mean. Okay, and apart from that, there's a one thing. The SAML use the XML or XSTML for the communication between service provider and the identity provider, whereas uh, OpenID Connect use the JWT token between service provider and the identity provider. Okay, so so that is how the SAML communication happens. So basically what happens, the user will request service. Let's consider in this case anypoint platform or MuleSoft is a service provider. The user will request for some API basically. Okay, or user want to log in into anypoint platform, MuleSoft anypoint platform. So user try to log in into MuleSoft anypoint platform. So what will happen, the service provider will redirect to the SAML IDP, so identity provider. The identity provider will display a logon pages. Okay, as soon as it will display the logon pages, the user will put its username and the password, and the credential will send for the verification. Once credential is verified, it will say, yeah, this is the correct username and the password. Then it will send the response back to the service provider, and service provider will authenticate the user. So that is the how SAML communication and the OpenID Connect communication works. It's the same, but the way of exchanging the data is a bit different. Whereas it used the JWT token, all the information embedded in JWT token for OpenID Connect, whereas SAML use the XML, and it is bit mature. Why it's bit mature, I will tell you. Okay. Let me go with a first demonstration. Identity management with the OpenID Connect. So what I will do, I'm using the Okta as my identity management basically. So in Okta, what I will do, I will go to application. Okay. So what now first demo is that I will use the Okta to log in into my anypoint platform basically. Okay. So I can simply say add application. Also I will go to anypoint platform. In anypoint platform, you can select access management and identity provider. I have to log in. Any question? It's get log. Any question?
None so far, Jack.
Okay. So what you have to do, we have a two thing, identity provider and the client provider. We will use both options. The first, we will see the identity management. Our first demo, we are using identity provider OpenID Connect to log in into the anypoint platform. In this identity provider will be the Okta, and anypoint platform will be the service provider. So I'm going to identity provider. I'm using OpenID Connect. Simple. Okay, so you can use the manual registration because I don't have any URLs, or for dynamic basically you have to create your own page and everything. So I will use the manual URLs. Copy this URL. We will require this URL. This is the redirect URL. So basically, once our job is done, once the Okta has authenticate the user, where the user needs to be redirect, right? That is the URL. So you can go to Okta. Under Okta, you can create a new app. You can say OpenID Connect and say create. you have to give a login URL, which we have copied just now. This is my redirect URL. You can give, I can give some name, mule identity. That's enough. And I can say save. Okay. So once I will save, it will give me a client ID and the client secret. Let me copy a client ID and the client secret to some notepad. So this is my and the client secret. Let me check all the settings. The one thing you have to do, you can go to back to application. Okay, and then you can click on your application, or you can simply say add to group. You can assign the user. Right now I'm assigning the user as a everyone. Let me stay. So you can go to assign to group. You can say assign. Okay, so you have assigned the user everyone. Okay, so that's the thing. Now I have to go to, I have copied my client ID and client secret. Under security, you have to go to API. Okay, you can go to API. Under API, you can click on default. So this is my authorization server. So my authorization server will give me all the URLs which I require. So you can click on this metadata URL. So it will give me all the issuer authorizations, all the URL. So simply the first thing what I want, a client ID and the client secret. So let me copy this. In the client secret. Okay. And I have to give an OpenID connect issuer URL. So you can find it from here basically. Okay. So just a minute. And you can give the authorized URL. So you can again go to metadata URI. Okay. So, so you can go back to authorized URL. Then you can give a token URL. Simple, like you can just change this to token. And finally, you have to provide a user info URL. So this is user info. Enable. So I will just not new non SSO. I just want SSO users. Okay. So this is the settings we need to do, and simply say, let me check all everything is looks good. Yeah, client ID and client secret is there. You can say create. Okay, your this thing has been created now. So what you have to do now, you have created this thing. So now what I will do, I will try to use that particular URL to log in into, you can copy this particular URL, just remove the redirect, copy this URL, and I will go to other browser. Otherwise it will. So now I'm using the Anypoint platform URL. It has redirect me to the Okta, and I will put my username and password. Sign in. Okay, the user is disabled. Let me check. I think, let me enable. Okay, I don't know, like that. I created that user previously. That's why it's showing disabled. Let me log in it again. Okay, so I have to do the configuration once again. I have to delete this user. Yes, delete. Okay, go to identity provider again. Just give me a second. I will close this. I can just disable it. So let me do once again. OpenID connect. Let me copy this URL. This client registration URL. Just a minute. I will use manual registration. I will give ensure URL here. Then I will copy this thing. Then I want to give authorized URL. Then I token URL. I will copy this. I will just say user. So let me check if there's any users available now. Yeah, we have only my user. So let me do one thing. Let me go back to identity provider. Open Microsoft PS. Enter. I don't know why user is showing disabled. See what is happening. The user is getting here. Okay, but why it's showing disabled? I don't know. Okay, so let me enable from here and let me try to log in it again. Yeah, it has logged in. Okay, so I have some issue there. So basically, so you can see that I have used that particular user identity management to log in into my AnyPoint platform. But if you see the by default, I will not get any accesses basically. So it will say you don't have access, so that is the one thing you cannot you cannot do with this ID, open ID connect, like you cannot pass your access a default access. So that is the one issue. So in SAML, what you can do, you can pass the access, like what are the things you can access from the from this particular AnyPoint platform, right? But you cannot do with this open ID connect. I don't think we don't have any option. We have to provide the manual access. We can go to like access management. Why we cannot sit here? So I can go with my user access management. Under access management, like you can provide roles, whatever you have to provide to that particular user, you can do that. Okay, so next demo we will see, like, any question on this identity management demo?
We've got one question only, Jack, about Okta. So what is group in
Yeah, Abhishek,
Okta?
yeah, it's a good question. I will come on that. Okay, so there's a second demo when I will use the SAML. So you will come to know what is the group in Okta. Is that fine, Abhishek? Okay, so I will explain you what is the group. There is some mapping we need to do. I will explain you. So as I mentioned, now I am able to logging into my AnyPoint platform, but I can see only AnyPoint exchange, but we don't have, I don't have access to API manager, I don't have access to runtime manager, those kind of thing is not there, right? But using group we can do that. I will show you that. Yes, as usual, like what will happen? So, like you generally to log in into AnyPoint platform using Okta, your user must exist in the Okta first. The user will not exist in the AnyPoint platform. So, first time when you will log in, it will create the user in AnyPoint platform also. It will add that user in AnyPoint platform also. Okay. So, authentication will happen from Okta, but it will also add the user in AnyPoint platform, so you can assign the proper roles and the roles and access to that particular user in AnyPoint platform. Okay, Sujal? No, if we, for OpenID we cannot do that. I will show with the SAML. For SAML we can do that. Okay, we can provide the policies or whatever, we can do that. So okay, so I will show that. So next demo, I will just what I will do. Let me go with. I will delete this particular SAML one for now. Okay, and edit. Okay, I don't want this. So now I'm using the other identity provider. I think Jay asked me like we cannot use two. Yeah, we cannot use two. So I am already using the OpenID Connect. I cannot use the SAML two. So I want to disable first this. I can use a SAML 2.2. Okay. So for SAML 2.2, we want a sign-on URL, we want sign-off URL, we want issuer URL, we want audience URL. So for that, what I will do, I will go back to my Okta. So generally, I have to delete this particular application because I don't. I can create a 2 or 3 application. Whatever client ID and client secret we have created, I will just remove it because I don't have access to create many applications. So it will take 2 minutes. Let me do that. Deactivate. The second demo, we are using the same, like the concept is same, but instead of OpenID Connect, we will use the SAML. Okay. So let me remove it from active also. So I will say add application this time. I will explain group in this. Okay. So create, and you can use SAML 2.2 create. Okay. You can say Mule SAML, and you can simply say next. The things you have to provide a single sign-on URL. So basically, MuleSoft directly provide the URL. You can use this particular URL. So any point mulesoft.com/account/login receive ID. You can use URL. This is very important. So this is nothing. It's your organization ID dot anypoint dot mulesoft.com. You can provide that. Okay. And then yeah. Also you have to pass. See what are the now here you have to define what are the attributes you need to pass from Okta to the MuleSoft or any point platform. I want to pass a first name that needs to be registered. It will be user dot first name. You can add more parameter. I want also last name. User dot last name. And I will pass email. User dot email. Okay. So these are the things. Let me check if everything is fine. I will show this group later. Okay. So first we just understand all these things. So first name, last name, email, user dot email, last name, first name. Okay. Next. Okay. This is just the information. No, of no use. Just for internal purpose for Okta. Finish. Okay. So now it requires some data. So you can click on this view setup instruction. Now, what are the things we require on any point platform? The first thing we require a single sign-on URL. So we can get it from there. So this is my sign-on URL. I want sign-off URL, copy the same URL, just change SSO to SLO. That's it. Issuer, insert the issuer ID. So you can go there and this is my issuer ID. You can copy this and you have to provide a public key. This is my certificate. Copy this certificate, paste it here. Insert the audience URL, the URL which we have given in the SAML configuration of the Okta, and paste it here. Rest of the settings you can remove this. I don't want to enable for new non-SSO users. Okay, so these are the things you need to do. And let me check if everything is fine. So I don't have to create it again. Simply say create. Okay, the SAML is enabled now. So what you have to do, copy this particular URL. This particular now your URL for any to log in into any point platform is this. Copy this. Go back to. I will sign out from here. Okay, okay, that's fine. So I will say SSO. Sorry, because you assigned. Okay, okay. The problem is that we haven't assigned the user, so that is fine. So that is one important thing we should do. So for now, I will say everyone in the organization. So simply you can say add to group, assign to group. I can say assign to everyone. Okay, let me try it again. So now it's saying signing. So it automatically, because we have already signed into our Anypoint platform, it gets signed into that platform. Let me access runtime manager if I'm able to do that. It will say, it should say basically like, some error or something like that. You are unauthorized. I'm not able to access this, right? So for that, what we have to do, let me my Anypoint platform. Now I'll come to that and I can say Cloud Hub admin. Let me, yeah, it's, you can see that external set external group mapping. Once you enable that SAML, you will see that option. What you have to do, somebody asked me the question about the group. Okay, so I will tell you what is the group. So basically you can go to directory, under directory you have a group. So basically what I'm saying, I want to give some, see, I have a user, user in the Okta basically. So I want to give some minimum access to that particular user in Anypoint platform, even he is logging for the first time, where we group it come into the picture. So I've created something called group one. Okay. So in group one, what I will do, I will just say manage app, and I will assign that app basically to that particular group. 1 minute. Assign. Then say done. So creating group is easy, right? So basically you just have to create a group and assign the people. So basically I'm saying these are the users in that particular group can access a certain, can able to access the certain components in the Anypoint platform. How we will do it, I will show you. So you create the group. This is my group one. Under group one, I have a user Jitendra Bafna, and like I have this particular application. Okay, so I created that group. Now I will go to my application again. Okay, I will edit this application. General. Okay, and what I will do, I need to edit the settings. Okay, then I will say next. Then what you have to do, so you can say group, you want to add some name here. Any name can be fine. Either you can say group start with group one, okay, so which group we have created, but I will say all the group, not star. I will use the regex. Okay, so matches regex. So I, in that case, all this, all the groups basically. Okay, I can say next, finish. Then the one more thing you have to do after finish, you have to assign the group one to this particular application. You can go to general, okay, assign, like let me go back to application. You can simply say assign to group. If you have a group one, I think once we have assigned everyone, right? So the group one will automatically comes. So that is fine. So once we assign everyone, right? So it automatically comes. So assign to group. Okay. So by default, everything has been assigned. So now the next thing, what we have to do, okay, anything like, what we have to do, we have to simply go to Anypoint platform. So I want to give anybody who is logging, who is doing the SAML authentication, I want to assign the Cloud Hub admin role to his. I can say group one, the name which we have given in the Okta, we have to give the same name, set names. Okay, so I've said that group name. Then the also one thing what we have done, like if you go to MuleSoft, right? If you go to sign on or general, right? We have give this name as a groups, right? So you have to go to SAML identity provider. This mapping is very important. So now what will happen, if anybody is logging from that particular group, will get this particular like access to the cloud as a cloud hub admin basically. So here, if you come at the advanced settings, you give group attribute. So that name which we have given in the Okta, that is the groups, right? You have to give that. Okay. So now let me sign out from here. Okay. So what I will do, let me copy the URL. Where is my URL? Yeah, this is the URL. I will copy this. Check. Yeah, you can see that you by default you get the access to that particular production environment. So anybody like who is doing the SAML authentication with that, who are part of that particular group, will directly get the access to the runtime manager basically. Okay. Any question on SAML based authentication? You got it, Abhishek, right? What is the importance of group? Basically, you can map the roles basically in any point platform with Okta. Okay, so you got it, right? Any question before I move to our third demo, which is dynamic client registration? No question, right?
Yep.
So I think everybody is getting what we have discussing, right? So there is a two-way you can do the identity management. One is OpenID Connect, one is SAML. SAML is more mature, and I mentioned like you can directly map the role from Okta. You can directly map the role to that particular user in the anypoint platform using the group in the Okta basically. That is the one of the advantage that is the one of the capability we doesn't get with the OpenID Connect. That's why I mentioned like it provides some additional capability that is not provided by the OpenID Connect. Okay. So let me delete this. So next thing we will talk about how to secure our API. So basically, I have an API already deployed. So SAML, like I have seen like most of the organization are using the SAML basically open like more like they are using the SAML based authentication, which is security assertion markup language basically. Okay. So let me go back to sorry, I have it wrong side. No, mule. Let me check with which one is deployed first. Is that application? I have this particular URL, which is like Asia Kolkata, something like that. This is written, but this API is not secure. Okay, and also what we will do now. So I will go to I will enable the client management for this API. So I will go to access management. Also, let me close this. Move this application. I don't want it. Otherwise, like I do, I will just deactivate it. Let me going with where third party to get registered into an endpoint platform and the ACTA, so they can directly get a client ID and a client secret basically. Okay. So what I will I will go to client provider. So this time we are talking about the client secure the API registration. Connect basically. Okay. So you can say add provider. So you can use the OpenID dynamic client registration. So okay. So you have to give some name. So I can say Mule PCR designer. So you want a lot of information. So what we will do, we will go back to Okta. We will create a new application, add application, create new app. I can use OpenID Connect, create. Okay. So I can say Mule BCR, and you want to give the URL. So I will give the Postman callback URL because we are going to use the Postman for this testing. So I can give a Postman callback URL. Okay, so let me find out the Postman callback URL. This is the Postman. You can give your own callback URL if you are using application URL. Okay, or in simple case, do you want this? Okay, so we will not. Uh, Let me check whether we can give something from here. Okay, or we can we require this. Okay, so you can give some dummy for now. 81 slash callback. I'm just giving some dummy URL here. Okay, and once you will save, you will get. I just want the client ID and client secret. I will copy this client ID. I will copy this client secret. These are the two things I have copied. I don't think I require any other thing. Okay. Apart from that, I will require some data from here. Apart from that, you require some more thing. You can go to security. Okay, under security, I have to go to authorization server. I want to generate some token basically. It's very important. Like we have to generate some token. So you can go to token. I have some existing token. I can make use of that existing token. Let me revoke this. Better we will create new one. I can say create token, and I can say new token. It will give me one token here. I got it. Now I will go to any point platform. So what are the things it requires? Issuer URL. So we can copy from metadata. This is my issuer URL, and client registration URL. You can search for registration endpoint. This is my. This is where the client ID will register. Okay, the client will register. You have to provide authorization header. In that case, you can write SSWS. Okay, let's say so SSWS space the token which we have generated. Copy this, paste this. Then you have to provide a client ID and the client secret. So I have to provide a client ID and secret. Then you have to provide authorized URL, token URL. You can get it from metadata and introspect URL. Right. So these are the details you have to provide. Once you provide this detail, you just simply say create. Okay. So your dynamic client registration has been done. Now you go to environment. Somebody asked me question like, can I assign a multiple dynamic client registration? You can do. You can assign a different client provider to each environment, but each one environment will have a one client provider. So here I will select this one for this particular environment, and I will say update. I've done that. Now I will go to my API manager. Okay. So in my API manager, this is my application. I will go there. So if you see in application under advanced setting, under client provider, you have to change this to Okta. So basically, this is my client provider. Basically, you just save it, okay, and just redeploy it. You no need of redeploy also. You can just save it. Now I will go to Exchange. So I want to generate a client ID and client secret. If you see in Okta, I will have only one application registered. Okay, let me show that completely. I have only one application registered, that is the Mule DCR. Okay, and this is my which one is my API? I think this is right one. Yeah. So this is the API. I can say request access. I can select the instance. I can create a Mule application. I can say Mule demo app. You have to provide a grant type. I will use the authorization code. You have to provide a redirect URL. In this case, I will use the Postman redirect URL because I will testing and simply say create. Okay, now request access. Okay, so now you got a client ID and the client secret. So I will just paste it here. I will paste it here. Okay. So now let me go back to Okta and let's check if second application is registered or not. So you can see a Mule demo app has been successfully registered in Okta also. Just one change you have to do. I think this you have to assign the user. I can say assign and I can say done. Okay, that is the one change you have to do. Generally, like with full version, you can pass the user. Right now, I don't have an option in this particular version, so you can do that also. So now I have done that. Now what I will do, I will call this particular API in my Postman. Okay, and I can use the get. Okay, under get I can use what to. So you can use like grant type. I will use authorization code. Callback URL. This auth code, auth URL, access token URL, you can get it from metadata. In this my in this. Okay, so this is author. This is token. You have to provide a client ID and client secret, which is generated just now. So you can give as an open ID or you can define your custom. Okay, so you can just pass like and just say a get new access token. So it will open. It will open the Okta page where you have to pass username and password, and then it will generate a token basically. I will explain how the authorization code works. Okay, so you can say it generate a JWT token. You can use that token and just send the request. So we got a successful response. If I played with token or something done wrong with token, it would fail. Fail basically. I don't know why. Okay, why it failed? Anybody can tell me, like, because we haven't applied the policy to our API yet, right? So basically, we can go to API manager. Okay, and I can go to this particular API. I have to apply the policy. There is the open ID enforcement policy that needs to be applied. So you can say apply new policy. Okay, so if you see, like, now there is a policy open ID connect access token enforce. By default, that policy is not visible. So once you enable the dynamic client registration, then only this policy is visible. Otherwise, this policy is not visible here. I'm just saying configure policy. Okay, so contain all scope, or you can define the scope which are available, like nothing, like you can just apply the policy. Even you can keep everything default, just you want to ensure the policy get applied. So once you apply, 10 45 seconds to get applied. Any question before that? Yes, Okta will definitely create a new user in platform. That all I think we have covered. Any question?
We're good so far, Jeff.
Yeah. Let me check whether policy is applied. Still not applied. It take 45 seconds. Still, let's wait. I think I'm using the wrong API. That is the reason. So let me use. Just give me a second. I'm using just the wrong URL. Let me go back to. Let me identify the correct URL. So the URL is not that right. So yeah, I want to change this URL. I think which one is that? I think this. I think it will be like this is deployed at 130. I think. Trying to write you. And yeah, token has been revoked. So we can generate a new access token. Get new access token. This time it should not ask for username password because we have already given for first time. Use token. Send the request. Yeah, we got successful response. Okay. So what we have covered till now, we have covered three important concepts. One is identity management with OpenID Connect and the SAML 2.0. And the second, we covered a dynamic client registration using OpenID Connect. So there are few more things I want to discuss. So I hope everybody is fine. Like no question till now, or if does anybody have any question? If I want to apply a different scope, yeah, Jay, you can do that. So generally, what happens? So Jay, this is the good question. So what you have to do that you can go to API manager. I can show you, Jay. So this is my application, and I can go to policies. You can go to edit. So basically, you can say this is my mule scope. Okay, just example. This is my mule, whatever scope you want, mule scope, and you can say apply the configuration at a specific. Like for one method, you can give mule scope for read access. For one method, you can give write access. Then in that case, you have to apply the configuration to specific methods and the resources. If you apply to all, it will not allow to apply this policy again. If you apply at a resource level, then it will allow. So you have to do the changes here. Basically, you have to make sure like you give some like URL like invoices, like whatever so, like you have to set up like this. And you can define the like for one resource you have a mule scope, for other resource you have open ID, for third resource you can have a, so like that you can do. Okay, let me check if there's any other question. No need of multiple instance. You can apply at a resource level J. Okay. Okay. So let me move forward quickly. So like I talk about, like we have something called authorization code, and like we have seen like how authorization code works. So basically, so generally once a client get a client ID in the client secret, so what will happen? A client will send a client ID and the other parameter to the authorization server. Okay. The authorization server will receive a client ID and the other required parameter. It will validate the client ID and other parameters. If everything is fine, it will do the 3.0 redirect to the resource owner. So where you have to put a username and the password. We have seen that when we are creating the request from the postman, it prompt me to put the password for Okta username and the password. Same thing. If your username and the password is correct, it will say the user is authenticated and the consent back to the authorization server. Now authorization server will send authorization code back to the client. Okay. So now client will again send a client ID, client secret, authorization code which we have received, and other parameter on slash token URL, okay, to the authorization server. The authorization server will return back a JWT token to the client. Okay. And now we will send that client, we will send that token, we will send a request to the resource server with a bearer token in the authorization header. So now we are sending that request to the MuleSoft API manager, MuleSoft API manager, or we can call it as a to the runtime manager. So now it depends, like either we are going through proxy or either we are using the like API auto discovery, depend. So we send that. Now the resource server, we validate that token using that JWT validation URL. If token is validated, it will send response back to the client. So that is how authorization code works. Let me explain your example. So what I will do, I will simply go to policy. I will remove the OpenID connect policy from here. Basically, I don't want this now. I remove. Okay. So instead of that, I can apply a JWT validation policy. So here I can say JWT validation policy. So JWT is used to validate the token basically. You can apply configure policy. So what are the things we require to configure JDA? So we require HTTP period data, RSA 256. So from where we can find that URL? We can use control F JWTs. So you have a metadata, right? Authorization server metadata. There you can find that particular URL. Just browse that URL. In that you will get the algorithms and everything. It using the RSA 256, and this is the key which is used to verify. Okay. What I have to do, I have to go to any 56. I will use JWT URL, copy the URL, which paste the URL metadata. I will just skip all this client ID validation and I will simply say apply. Okay. The next thing, I will go back to my, let me go back to the application. Here, I'll create a new application. Create new application. OpenID Connect, create. Okay. And like, I will just say mule grant test. Okay. Then I will use the logging redirect because I will use the Okta as my, will just save. Okay. And like authorization code, I can edit this because I want to enable the other types also, because we can use the same thing. Client credentials, implicit basically. Okay. And I can allow access to token grant also. Save. Let me copy a client ID and the client secret, which I will get. Copy. and the client secret. Okay. So these are the things I need to copy. Any other question? Let me check. No, no, Victor, like you don't have to apply, like you can apply the same, like same dynamic line register to registration to each and every app. You don't have to create it again and again. If you have multiple apps, you want to apply the policy. Do you need to all? No, no. You just apply the policy by default. The whatever dynamic line registration we have set up, it will all applicable to all the APIs. Okay, you don't have to do it again and again. Okay, okay. So where we are, I've copied the client ID and client secret. Okay, I copied it. Now I have secured my API. Let request. It should give me error basically. Invalid client, something like that. Yeah, it's not still the policy. I haven't applied the policy yet. I think I applied that. So I have applied on Mule Wellington demo API. Yeah. So let's wait while policy is getting applied. So till that, what we will do? Let me do one thing. So we will use the same callback URL, same auth URL, same access token URL. Just we will change a client ID and the client secret, which we have generated. Same. Let me send a request first. Yeah, 4804 bad gateway. That's fine. Send the request again. Okay, the token is still validated. So let me change this token. Invalid token. So like let me get new access. So here what will happen? I will tell you. Okay. So not right. Callback is right. Authorization code is right. I think some issue with the client ID and the client secret. They authorized the token. Let me check Okta configuration. Something is not right in our configuration. Let me check if callback is correct. Okay, so there is another way I can do that. So let me check what let me restart the postman. I think something is. Give me a second. Uh, I will go to the PPT. I will show the demo again. So now the authorization code in authorization code, like I will show the demo in 2 minutes. So see in authorization code, what is happening? We like as I mentioned, we have a resource owner. Okay, and like like once the user is authenticated, it return back a authorization code. Once the authorization code has been written back, the client has to call the slash token URL. We get a token, then client actually make the request to the resource server, validate that token using JWK's private key, successfully validated. Now let me go with implicit code. there's some difference in implicit code. A client send the request and other parameter to author and server. Author and server validate that, and like author and server will do the 302 redirect for the authentication prompt. Okay, once authentic like user has been authenticated, the author server will not return code. It will directly return the JWT token to the client, and the client will directly access the resource server. So here, what happened? We are not calling the token URL. It it returning the token in the first step. In previous, like it first return the code, then we are calling the token URL to getting the token directly back. Like basically like it is bit insecure as compared to authorization code, right? But yeah, in this case, we directly get the token. We send the token with a request in the authorization header. That token is get validated, and the token once the token is validated, we got the response back from the client. There is a third type. In client credential, there is a no resource owner. The client will send client ID and the client secret to authorization server on the token URL. The authorization server will validate and the send token back to the client, and the client can make the request to the resource server with a token in the authorization header. Server will validate the token is validated, and it will respond back with the resources to the client basically. So that is the difference. Any question on these three? No, it's Jay. It's not a SSL issue. Like it's something else. Let me do one thing. Let me create the application again. Like I done some mistake while creating the application. I think because it is working for everything. Now let me do. Let me check once more. Right? Issue. So I will tell you. The problem is that I haven't assigned the user to this particular thing. Right? I have to assign the group. Okay. So once I will assign the group, the problem will sort out. So this is very important. You need to assign the user. Okay. So I assigned that. Let me go back to Postman. Okay. So that's fine. Do get new access token. Let me log in. Okay. Now proceed. You can use the token. Let me send the request. Yeah, you got a success. Now I can use a client credential also. So you can simply use a client. So access token URL. Here we don't. I can use the same client type because if you see when I select the client credential also, I can select new access token. Retry. Okay, let me try with implicit type. In implicit, we don't have to give a token URL, and it should also. Okay. Implicit. So I will tell you what is the problem. So you have to give a parameter called nonce. Okay. So it is not available here. You have to give a parameter called nonce. Nonce with some value basically 1, 2, 3. So by default, it's not available in the Postman. That is the reason it is not working. Okay. So but I can show you like this. Okay. So what you can do, you can form your URL where you can say client uh, client ID is equal to this. You can say client secret. You don't have to pass client secret also. You can say response. I want directly to open. Then you can say redirect URI. You have to give post redirect URI. Otherwise, it will not work because the URI should. Then you can give scope, which is equals to open ID, or you can even give mule scope. There is a custom scope which I will define. Then you give a response and your view state. State is nothing just to identify the response is coming from the proper source basically. Copy this, just paste it here. What happened? Feature has been deprecated. Yeah, we got that access token. See, we got that access token. Okay, so this is the access token we got. So as I mentioned, like we directly get the token basically, and we can use that same access token in our request basically. Okay, so that is about client credential and grant various declaration code, client credentials, and implicit code. Any doubt on these three approach? This is very important. Any doubt? Okay. Yeah, Mary. I think I completed the demonstration part. So just at the last, I will just say unable. I will go through some best practices basically. Basically always enable multi-factor authentication, avoid using basic authentication when exposing the APIs to external consumers. Always use OAuth JWT client credential or authorization code. Use always TLS version 1.2 to secure the transport layer. Enable end-to-end HTTPS secure communication. Always encrypt the sensitive data like social security number, password. MuleSoft provide various cryptography techniques like PGP, JC, and XML encryptor and decryptor. Always enable the identity management or SSO for any point platform. Always apply API security policies with API manager like rate limiting, spike control, and the threat protection. And you need to secure the APIs at a transit and the rest, and avoid logging confidential data like password and SSN. Yeah, yeah, Mary. I think we are good now.
Awesome. What a demo, Jack.
Yeah.
You're such a legend. Like, this is really informative.
Yeah.
Yeah, so if there are no questions, we could proceed to quizzes. So have you got did you prepare any questions, Jack?
Yeah.
Maybe
Mary, I
three
ping
questions.
you LinkedIn. I have ping you on LinkedIn.
Okay. All right. Let me check. Okay. So everyone ready? So we're giving away free training voucher or exam voucher. So first question, what is full form of SAML? A, security assertion markup language. B, shared assertion markup language. C, short assertion markup language. D, none of the above.
I think we got. We should select three people, right? For first question.
You've got three questions, so one person each question.
Or what we can do, we can select three people, and then we can total 9 people, and then we can use that wheel of names to select three. So let me do that.
All right. So 3, Jay, Viraj, and Dhananjay. Okay. Cool. So second question. Which one is not OAuth grant type? A, authorization code. B, implicit code. C, basic authentication code. D, client credentials. The answer is letter C, basic authentication code.
Yeah, we
So,
got three people name. Let me copy this.
yeah, thanks, Jack.
Mayur Agarwal and last is Bhaskar.
Yeah. Okay, cool. So last question. What is full form of DDoS? A, distributed denial of service. B, delta denial of service. C, data denial of service. D, none of the above. So the answer is letter A,
Yeah,
distributed
it's
denial of service.
Tarun Praksit. I think J is already there. So it's Tarun, then Kapoor and Pariksit. Yeah.
Okay, cool. We've
I will
got
use
9
MuleSoft.
total.
You can see my screen, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So we can select three winners. So let me put all these names. So guys, as soon as you get selected, right? So you can put your email ID into the chat box. So Mary can collect the email ID and she can
Yes.
send you a voucher link. So we are selecting the first winner. I think it's Kunal.
Congratulations, Kanal. So please send me your email address privately if you want.
I will go over second. Pariksit, second winner is.
Congratulations.
It's J Dixit.
Yay. Congrats, Jay. All right. So, yeah, again, please flick me your email address and then, yeah, we'll forward it to Mariana. All right. Thank you so much, Jack,
Yeah.
for
Thanks.
a great presentation.
Yeah.
I really love security topics. So, guys, if you still have more questions, now it's a better chance to ask Jackie. If not, feel free to reach out any of Jackie's channel in LinkedIn, in MuleSoft blogs, in VZone, or me. Yeah, we're happy to assist you. And don't forget to register for upcoming MuleSoft Connect. So thank you so much again, guys, for joining in. Thanks again, Jack.
Thank you. Thank you so much. Thanks
All
everyone.
right.
Yeah.
Okay. Enjoy the rest of your day. See
Yeah.
ya, guys. Bye.